Hello, rollers! Welcome back to Infodump. I am half of your hosts. I am Colin. I use they and he pronouns, and I am joined by my wonderful, fantabulous co-host.
Yes, I am the other half of your host. My name is Hannah. I use they, them pronouns. Welcome to Infodump, the show where we get to tell you about all of the stuff that we want to tell you about in the TTRPG space for the last few weeks. Yeah, very exciting.
I feel like we have some hot tea and some lukewarm or some older tea. Is that what I was gathering?
I have some iced tea.
Some iced tea. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm so here for it because, the story of TSR was also this insane, very now ice cold tea, but wonderful and delicious nonetheless.
You just gotta sprinkle in like a little lemon and sugar and
and sugar, simple syrup is way easier than like actual sugar to dissolve, and so you
true.
go from there.
Yeah,
I don't know how far we can stretch this iced tea metaphor, but I'm here for it.
I think, Colin, if there's one thing that you and I do well, it's stretching metaphors to the point of absurdity.
It certainly is.
How are you, my friend?
I'm okay. I had a long week. I was working at an elementary school doing what was billed as role play adventures to the after school coordinator. And what I will briefly say is I was subbed for someone else like a little while ago. And so I got this idea. And the idea is basically you have the kids get little minis of something that represents them. You give them a little battle map, and then you put a monster out, and you just have them roll a d20, and they have to get above a 13. And then you just narrate what's happening, and it takes as long as the hours that you have them for them to kill the monster. So I started doing that, and I realized that was also not quite enough time, so I added in having them draw the map that we were making, like give them a chance to build the town that was being attacked by these monsters. I did get a lot of fart factories and a lot of things labeled 6-7 for some fucking reason.
Cool.
I'm annoyed that I now know anything about that.
Yeah.
And then I added in the last day making their own, drawing an image of themselves as this little character. And so I spent 75 minutes with two groups of kids that were in numbers anywhere from 6 to 20.
Wow.
And anywhere in ages from 5 to 10. Not at the same time. They were divided by grade.
Okay.
But, and I left at the end of the week feeling like, and at last day I brought foam noodles and we did foam noodle fights.
Of course.
Because, yeah. And I left at the end of the week going I crushed that. Everyone that worked at that school loved me. The kids loved me. And I also maybe never want to do it again.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. Man, running TTRPGs for somebody who's so young that they barely have their number recognition down 1 through 20 is something I have never attempted.
Yeah. It actually works. Even the littlest kids kind of figured out what was happening, and there was a lot of, I want to punch the monster in the butt, or I want to dive into the monster's butt. There was a lot of that, which for me then goes, well, you do that and the monster farts on you, roll to see if you throw up.
Yeah.
And likewise, they have to roll above a 13 to not throw up.
That's, I think, exactly the level of maturity you should expect from elementary schoolers, I think.
And the last thing I want to say about this school, and the thing that I also feel very proud of this moment, Friday, kids dressed up. There was a lot of kids, a surprising number of kids in Harry Potter or Harry Potter adjacent costumes. I don't know if they were just on sale this year or what. And one girl who was in the probably 4th or 5th grades, I'm like, you're reading these books. You're telling me you're reading the 4th books. And I go, hey, Harry sucks. Hermione is actually the hero of the entire story. And you,
no, that is the truth,
who are dressed like Hermione, you should know this and you should understand this. And she vehemently denies that Harry is not kind of an asshole and kind of the worst character in the books in some ways. And I'm like, in 10 years, when you read these books again, you're going to thank me. You're going to remember that random adult that did D&D with you for a week and told you that Hermione was, in fact, the hero.
Hermione is the hero of those books.
And
I
it
remember,
kind of made me realize how strongly I felt about this exact thing, too.
I also have a strong amount of feeling about the fact that Harry Potter as a character sucks. I remember reading the last book and being really disappointed when he didn't die for real. And this was back when I was in high school, because I was in school. I was the same age as Harry as the books were coming out, and I remember being so pissed off at him the entire time I was reading those books that I we got to the last one and he died, and I was like, finally. And then he came back and I was like, no, damn it.
and this girl's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, okay, you're reading the fourth book, right? Just in the fourth book, the ball, the winter ball, when he takes this girl who really likes him and wants to hang out with him and spend time with him to the ball, and then spends the whole fucking time sitting there and staring at Hermione.
You're so funny. You're going to argue about Harry Potter with a fourth grader?
I did spend about 5 minutes when we were that. It was in between sessions. They had a little snack break, so I wasn't eating into my time and wasting other kids' time.
Yeah,
but it was I'll waste your time, child who is misguided about who the real hero of the Harry Potter books are.
Oh my God. I'm sure it's the only way in which any of the children are misguided.
The only way. How
so
are you,
funny.
Hannah? So
I'm
pretty good. It was
okay.
a long week, but that was some highlights for sure.
I think that's wonderful. I am definitely we're having a low period. I also work with elementary school age children, and specifically TK and K. And what most TK and K teachers can tell you is that the week of Halloween is the worst week of the year.
That tracks.
The children are in the spirit of the holiday in the worst possible way.
Full of sugar
there are
and
spirits,
unruly, and
there are spirits,
the
and they
things.
are evil, and they have possessed the children. Is
sounds
generally
about
the vibe. But they are very funny. And so for Halloween, my co-teacher and I dressed up as Umbreon and Espeon, and had a very spirited debate with 3 children dressed as Pikachu as to which was the stronger Pokemon. All 3 Pikachus, or Umbreon and Espeon. And then we played a game called Make 'em Flat. And I think we did win that one. Make 'em Flat, obviously, is the game where you take willing children and you push them down on the ground going, be flat, be flat, be flat. It's great. They love it. It's a great game.
Yeah.
It's really good for the educator, I think. I feel a lot of stress relief when I play Make 'em Flat.
And I also feel like it's not solely the domain of the neurospicy child that wants to be crushed.
Right.
Many people, as most children want to be crushed, I would argue.
They love being crushed. They love being crushed. They love being tipped over. They love being chased. Kids love being chased. They love when you make a weird sound and grab their head and go blah, 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 blah. They love that.
This is why I love, the foam noodle fights also are very cathartic for me in a lot of ways, because if you give them, very simple rules, the rules are you can only hit someone who's holding a noodle. If you hit someone who's not holding a noodle, I take the noodle away and you don't get to play anymore. Mm-hmm. And 2, don't hit above the shoulders.
Yep.
And that's one that there's a lot of on accident people will totally. And then you give them a little technique. You're like, don't hit like this, hit like this, not overhand, because then you are going to hit someone's head. But if you go kind of sideways,
Yeah, from the side.
Technique. Learn some sword fighting technique while you're hitting people with noodles. Why not? Then they all have fun, and I just get to watch them beating each other up in a way that is totally safe, and no one really can ever get hurt unless they're doing something stupid.
I think some of my brightest memories from childhood involve slapping people with pool noodles. So I'm with you there.
Amazing.
Well, Colin, do you have some fun little tidbits you'd like to share with me?
Oh, indeed I do. I am so excited. Shall we roll for it?
I would love to roll for it.
Okay. One day I will bring physical dice out here because, as per usual, 9, Google decides that I am terrible.
I got a 6. So
Oh, amazing. Okay, great.
the dice gods are on your side, actually.
Apparently, and what a funny way. I have some medium warm tea, as I said, and it is the thing that you are probably aware of, and many of our listeners may in fact already be aware of, but I think is worthy of discussion. Namely, the fact that Project Sigil, whatever, Wizard of the Coast's vague attempt to nod in the direction of a cool 3D virtual tabletop is now formally dead. Ugh. They released a statement that was, the typical corporate levels of mealy-mouthed and taking all of the wrong lessons into consideration and so on. And they've also given people that were using it or beta testing it some rather pitiful nods towards a thank you. And also all content and characters, like anything that users have put into it, will completely shut down a year from now in October 2026. And so that is the thing that has happened.
Yeah.
And I think it is worth remembering a little bit about like the history of this for a moment, of just how poorly Wizards like planned this, announced this, laid off a big chunk of their development team, and then said they were going to keep doing it as it limped along slowly, bleeding the entire time.
Right. I remember us having conversations in an earlier episode about a pretty significant portion of the team getting laid off, and how there had been a lot of speculation directly afterwards that this was probably foreshadowing for what was going to come in the near future.
And it made it 6 months-ish from its formal launch, right? It was, thanks as per usual to our friend Chris Hutton at TTRPG Insider for interesting notes and a summary that I am also kind of quoting from here. But like, it was announced 3 years ago and then developed for a while, and it was supposed to be an alternative virtual tabletop that was somewhere closer to, honestly, to Baldur's Gate, I think, was their end-all goal in a lot of ways. It was formally launched in March of this year. And then 2 months later, the development team was slashed to almost nothing, which, as at the time and still, I think really speaks to how they birthed this, this little child, this little virtual child, and then immediately strangled it.
Yeah.
Immediately decided it was no longer worthy of consideration, and then just like threw it out.
Well, we talked a lot about how there's a lot of stuff that's like kind of overlapping here from stuff that we've talked about in the past. Even the OGL debacle is related to this. The OGL debacle, in part, was around WotC's goal of creating a much more digital product. And part of that was going to be like, it was going to involve making D&D property like D&D, the franchise, the IP, more proprietary to WotC and D&D Beyond, allowing them to basically kind of corner the market on running a virtual tabletop for people who wanted to play D&D, like kind of eliminating other places that you could get it. And obviously, because that sort of power grab fell apart, a lot of stuff down the line from that has also been affected. Things like Sigil, things like maps on D&D Beyond. There's a lot of stuff that's this kind of ripple effect of them failing to become the only place, monopolize D&D digitally, has resulted in them pulling a lot of funding and talent from projects like this. And obviously there's also, the ongoing financial trouble at Hasbro leading to like widespread layoffs for the last several years.
Which again, they're shitty corporate masters going, oh yes, that bump of 2020. Let's just get those sweet numbers again. Maybe we can cause a pandemic this time just for this fucking capitalist reason. Anyway, I think it is most of these things that we have talked about specific to Wizards over the last year are all interconnected in their doubling down in this way. And honestly, like they're continuing to double down on developing a almost digital exclusive marketplace, right? They have partnered with so many other third-party content that you can now buy or find on D&D Beyond itself. I don't know how that revenue sharing works. I really hope those companies got a good deal. And like one of the other things that I looked at their official posting on D&D Beyond to just get a sense of the language they're using, and also look at some people's comments, which there are almost where are we? No, there are more than 200 comments since this was posted. I haven't even refreshed the page, but it was posted a week ago on October 24th. And some very choice quotes. Just I need to read them, and I need to like flip back to Zoom to see your reaction for a second. So, quote, "At Wizards of the Coast, our goal is to create experiences that help you tell incredible stories together, whether at the table, online, or anywhere you gather to play." There is. Where is it? So they talk about their if you get some of your subscription credit, and then way down at the bottom, and little thank you for your support section. "To the developers who brought Sigil to life, thank you for your vision, artistry, and dedication. Your work inspired the world of D&D and will shape future experiences fans will continue to enjoy." Which to me is like a real short-sighted thing, and a short-sighted way to phrase this, right?
Yeah.
And we've talked before about my confusion over corporate speak and the fact they can't be like, to our developers, we made a mistake in this development and now we're formally pulling the plug and we're sorry that you wasted years of your life and effort and then we laid you off for no fucking reason. I understand they can't say that, but they could at least get closer to that than something that feels like you strangled these people's virtual child and then you gift wrapped it and handed it back to them.
Yeah.
And it's just a literally gift wrapped dead virtual child. I don't know.
It definitely feels crass. It definitely does not feel like there is a lot of appreciation for the amount of work that these people were doing. I've just looked back in my notes, and I recall that the elimination of the Sigil team happened very close to the release of the alpha in March, which obviously is not a time at which a product is actually ready to go. It's like the most bare bones version of it. They had eliminated like 90% of the people who worked there. They were down to a team of about 30. So it seems like kind of this closure was probably inevitable. And you probably had some time to put together a statement that wasn't going to sound so nothing.
And this is a not small number of these comments that are just like, what are you? One choice comment posted by user whose screen name is Narutika61265. "Perhaps more energy spent on this rather than the extensive new terms of service claiming everything on D&D Beyond as yours would have led to more success on the Sigil project." No fucking way. And the other part of this to me is also that at basically the same time as this was announced, they did double down on digital content in like every other arena. It
is, we've said it before, we'll say it again. Wizards is a mess right now. I'm not exactly clear on what their strategy was here. It definitely seems that, like, as of March, we had been kind of anticipating that the Sigil team was going to be done, that the project was done. And it's not even necessarily clear exactly why that is, other than the fact that the product really underperformed what executives were expecting. And with that in mind,
which is what happens when you don't give it appropriate amount of resources and time.
Yeah, that's what happens. And also it begs the question of, like, what were they expecting? Like, what kind of performance were they expecting from this product, and how wildly misaligned were their expectations with what was possible within the time frame that they set?
I think that's a really valid question. I think so. I spent a very small amount of time on it because really quickly I was like, this is a hot mess. There's no way it actually even runs on my computer. Like, there's almost nothing of value to me here. However, I would say, I think in the Hasbro executives or WotC's executives' wet dreams, it was going to be somewhere between your own personal Baldur's Gate 3 and the eventual AI takeover of said virtual space.
Right.
I think they wanted it to be like playing co-op Baldur's Gate 3 with your friends in DM, but you can't do that. I don't think currently we have the technology to create a three-dimensional virtual environment as your DM describes it and tells you, and then you move around the map. Because again, at that point, you're playing a video game and you don't need a DM.
Right.
So I think they had this very weird and inarticulate vision that was not really achievable in any case. And then they just did not give them the resources to do anything.
Yeah, that definitely tracks with what we know about executives. I would also say that if you want to play your own personal Baldur's Gate 3, you just play Baldur's Gate 3. That already exists. And more content like it might exist if Wizards hadn't completely screwed the pooch in terms of their professional relationship with Larian. So,
I mean, they're trying to make a Baldur's Gate 4 without Larian's involvement, as we discussed.
Best of luck. Best of luck, guys.
Current WotC president John Haidt has also wanted to make more video games, talk about an MMORPG or a new one, and as we talked about, the like potential fucking Gears of War-ification of it. I think I forget where that
it was God of War.
It was God of War
that I think that he was referencing, but
and so this. Yeah,
there's more appropriate than Gears of War, to be clear. Slightly different genre, but no more appropriate.
I mean, the last Gears of War, I would say, was never on any planet or circumstance known for its voice acting or storytelling or anything. And I would argue that God of War and God of War Ragnarok sort of are the most recent ones. Anyway.
That's a good point.
To be fair.
Yeah.
But still, not D&D, a fairly linear solo RPG that's like a little bit sandboxy in terms of how many side quests there are to do in each area you come to. But like...
Yeah.
It's not D&D.
No, it screams of a boardroom full of people who know the amount of money that certain products made and have absolutely no real insight into why that is, who are making decisions about how the product that is Dungeons & Dragons should function without, again, any real insight as to why Dungeons & Dragons is successful either.
Didn't someone also, was it their president or was it fucking Elon Musk who said something about playing his players loving AI at their tables? I think it might have been John Haidt. Either way, I think at the time we heard this quote and we're like, yeah, that's because you play only with your chat GPT and with no actual humans because humans don't want that.
Well, if you invest enough time and effort, perhaps ChatGPT can make you so delusional and psychotic that you believe that Dungeons & Dragons is happening for real. So, if that's what you're pursuing in your Dungeons & Dragons experience, I say go for it, Elon. Jesus fucking Christ.
Anywho.
I definitely just want to take a moment to express what WotC should have, which is I'm so sorry to hear that these people are looking for new employment in a job market like this. I'm very sorry that their time and effort was wasted on a product that I think probably given adequate time and resources could have been perfectly serviceable.
It could have been pretty cool and totally fine. I didn't see anything that was reinventing the wheel in a way that was, a new odd triangular shaped wheel that somehow was better than a circle. But it was another wheel. It was a totally nice wheel, just like Foundry and other things.
It was a perfectly nice wheel, and I think we would all like there to be a few more wheels available at the tire store every now and again. But it was never going to completely replace things like Roll20. It was never going to completely outcompete in that area. And I think that the expectations for it on the executive side seem to be pretty unrealistic, just based on the timeline of kind of stuff that has happened. Yeah.
And I agree. Thank you to any and all who worked on it. If you ever hear this, we appreciate your sacrifices.
Yes.
And your hard work. And fucking sucks that your virtual child was treated this way.
Yeah. Ugh. That sucks.
Hey, this is why we can't have nice things anymore, apparently.
For sure. Well, I have something totally different for you.
All right. What do you got for me?
This is my ice cold tea. Recently, Wargamer writer Molly Russell reported on this is in her article, former D&D designer outlines why boss fights suck in 5th edition. Mike Mearls had a bit of a moment on Twitter where he talked about combat balancing in 5th edition in a way that I think, at least I found very validating. Of many things that I already strongly believed. So Mike Mearls, for the uninitiated, worked for WotC from 2005 to 2023. Kind of like an old guard Wizards guy. Co-led the design of 5th edition and was laid off in 2023. And he helped design the same combat system that he is critiquing. If you've ever been like...
Giving him a very valid point to critique from, I would
absolutely.
argue.
And basically what he came in and said, that he had several quotes that I found very interesting and validating. But basically what he outlined was that the game was built around the assumption that characters would engage in about 20 rounds of combat between long rests. So about 5 to 6 combat encounters between long rests per day. And that the assumption was that like when you reached major narrative encounters, big boss battles, that your characters would have spent some or most of their limited use abilities. And he outright said a party that unloads with their best powers simply breaks the system. He went on to say that essentially, if a party is at least semi-optimized, they can vaporize boss monsters in a round or even less, which is completely congruent with my experience having put monsters in front of parties, is that even a party that's not min-maxed can perform quite well against some of the most fearsome monsters that 5th edition has to offer, because the powers that player characters have in 5th edition are so extreme. And his suggested solution was basically that you throw CR out the window, which is very funny given that he basically designed the CR system, and design boss monsters with like a different hit point scale, one that assumes the party is alpha striking and is using all of their best powers in every boss encounter. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that solution to the problem, but it was a very interesting read, just given that I think every single DM that I've talked to who runs 5th edition has complained about this in some way.
I learned very quickly to ignore CR and basically anytime. So, in fairness, I use D&D Beyond's Encounter Builder more often than not because that is the system that I use most for D&D, and it is the most convenient. And annoyingly, I'm giving them some of my money, so I might as well get my money's worth.
Right.
But very early in my DMing, within the first 5 sessions in 2020, as I was just starting to DM for my friends, since we were all stuck indoors, I was like, oh, this is bullshit. The encounters that you have suggested in this module that are this challenge for my players are woefully inadequate.
Yeah.
And so I just basically I'm like, okay, I need to add more things, and basically every single fight should read as a deadly encounter. There should never be one that's easy unless I'm actually like, oh, I want you to you guys should feel bad about how easy it is for you to kill these things.
Right.
There's our dear friend Kitty Stryker told me a story about going back to like an early area in Baldur's Gate that's full of kobolds that she had missed during a playthrough, going back at like level 8 and, one hitting every kobold and feeling really bad about it, and then trying to like use sleeping spells and things, and like having the game force her to kill them. And I think it's really interesting that he starts this, Mike Mearls starts these early in these quotes by saying the system was designed for players to have 20 rounds of combat per long rest.
Yes.
Which really speaks to D&D as a combat simulator.
Yeah. And
they assume that you're going to just walk through the wilderness and fight things 4 to 6 times per day.
Yeah.
Which kind of assumes that you're like the most murder hobo-y motherfuckers in the world.
Right. And he also, in this kind of conversation that he was having on Twitter, was like, we assumed that there would be a certain amount of time between like long rests. But what we found in practice was that anybody worth their salt, any player worth their salt is gonna long rest every 2 combats or so. Like, it is actually unstrategic to not long rest often. And it was really interesting because I feel like every DM I've ever talked to has been like, I go on D&D Beyond, I go on Kobold Fight Club, I design these encounters with these monsters where just the monsters' abilities and the number of them should be enough to give my players a real challenge. And it doesn't at all. And I think that Mike Mearls being like, mathematically, it's not going to, because the math is not on your side at all. Unless you're doing a huge number of combats per long rest.
Or playing by different rule sets, right?
Yes.
I was going to say, I think this is in some ways an argument for what a friend of mine has called like the hardcore version, where an overnight 8 hours of rest is a short rest and a week of downtime is a long rest.
Right. And yet at the same time, like rules like that are going to really drag the story out. Like it's really going to slow things down in a way that like I think a lot of people who are playing are not super interested in doing.
Yes, and like I'm thinking about this in my head as I'm saying it out loud. Like I do think that version, that changing short rest to a night and long rest to a week of downtime, that you don't need to role play the entire fucking thing unless your table wants to. Like it changes the way time passes in the game, but it does at least I think address this mechanical players are always fucking OP.
Yeah.
Because you have to resource manage much more carefully. Those spell slots are not coming back when you use them.
Right. I think it's definitely like if that is your goal, is to give players like closer to what was the design intended experience, I think that you definitely have your work cut out for you. Because I think most players are gonna push back pretty hard at the idea of like, either fundamentally changing the rules or not long resting very often, because most players are not looking to have combat be as hard as how combat is kind of slated to be. D&D combat takes a really long time. It's very like cognitively heavy. Like you're doing a lot of thinking while it's happening. And I do think that most tables are not super interested in running 3 to 5 combats before they long rest. I in my own games, I've been more tempted towards what Brandon Green, Total Madness, one of our recent interview guests, talks about, which is combat is in your way to solving the problem that you're actually trying to solve. There's some kind of urgent situation that you're trying to resolve, and combat stands in the way between you and resolving that problem. I find that leaning more narrative means that, like, when I do have combats, I can make them insane and give you a primary objective and make combat your secondary objective, because I am trying to basically do the exact same thing, which is like make it feel like combat is not something that you're just going to be able to frolic through without encountering any real difficulty, because you have all of your abilities available to you. I don't know a single party that I've run for that before I send them into a big boss battle isn't like, well, we're going to long rest first. And I have definitely been like in the driver's seat, like very hard pressed to not allow them that, because as Mike Mearls points out, it's not very strategic for them not to do that. So, very interesting. I thought,
unless you can create narrative reasons why there is time sensitive. It's like, every 12 hours you delay, the necromancer's army exponentially increases.
Right.
And you have to deal with that many more things. And you're like, well, is 8 hours of rest worth it? Or do we need to just go start smashing shit up?
Yeah. It's very interesting to hear that admission from a major developer of their current dominant system. And very validating for all of the many times that I've looked monsters up and been like, I'll run this against my team, and they just flatten them with no problem. And I'm like, why did that happen? Because the game's not designed to be run the way that I'm running it.
Yeah. I mean, I do think in this backhanded sort of way, it has forced people that care about D&D a lot to be more creative with how they run encounters. Yeah. If they choose to like do combat more often and have that be a feature and a highlight of their campaigns. Which, is not necessarily a great design choice. Right. But I think is an interesting side effect.
If it's an option that's available to you, that's one thing. But if it's what you have to do in order to make combat interesting, then there's a pretty serious design flaw just from the way that the game is put together.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking about it also in this moment, this way. I joined a kind of a play-by-post Discord server during pandemic as well, which also gave me a lot of experience with the dice rolling bot that D&D built and integrated into Discord, which surprisingly functional and kind of getting better over time. Still not my favorite, but is a thing. But there was this habit there of not only... it was, there's like a role play channels, and then periodically someone's like, I'm going to throw a bunch of monsters at you. Go to the street channel if you want to go fight a monster. And they'll balance for whatever level they specify and however many people. And there's this thing where everyone immediately always will long rest their character. And also a habit of most DMs starting combat with a prep round. And so getting used to that system and being like, okay, how do I challenge people when they get just an unanswered bonus action or full round of combat or something, depending on how DMs rule it, before anyone tries to do anything. So they're spinning up their abilities instead of also taking hits from an enemy. They're like doing it before anything happens for free. And balancing for that and being like, oh, no, now I really throw CR out the window and know that, like, you know, a group of 5 level 6 to 8 PCs can actually handle CR 13s. Was an interesting, like, oh, this is how I need to scale it. And then sometimes overcorrect. Like there, you know, in our game, I will tell you that the raid on Crackle Rock was supposed to be a lot easier for you guys.
Yeah.
And then there was sort of the Deus Ex Wizardess popping out with a mass polymorph spell to move the story along, because we're like, oh, we don't want this to take 3 more weeks.
Yeah, I think that that's something that, like, most DMs deal with, is that combat is kind of a slog. And so, like, even players who really enjoy combat, like, it's a lot to take on. It's interesting to see, like, how different DMs solve for this. It's interesting. Like, as you were talking, I was thinking about, like, oh, Baldur's Gate 3 also has to solve for this. And the way that they solve for this is by limiting your party size, limiting how high a level that you can get. And as you move into Act 3, which is supposed to be the most challenging act of the game, pretty much every boss battle that you're walking into is not only, like, very narratively, like, poignant to at least one of your companions, and so it's not like just wasting your time, but it's also a boss battle that you have to be very strategic about because of just how many other enemies you're facing. Usually you're facing a group of sometimes 30 or more enemies, and all of those enemies have turns in initiative, things that, like, you can do in a video game because the person running it is a computer. And I definitely have had a lot of conversations with people about strategizing for those encounters because they are very challenging. And so much of it is like a test of all of the skills that you have accumulated, like, literally in your play style, moving through the game. And I think that is something that I've brought into my own like tables, running combat encounters where, you know, most people know that what makes combat difficult, like, who's going to win combat, is basically who has the most turns. It's all it's all like an order of operations of how many who gets to go the most times. And if your enemies get to go way more than you do because there's way more of them, you have a very serious problem in the action economy. And I do think that, like, ultimately, that is often how I solve for this problem, is making the action economy balanced against you in a major way. But that's very hard to run as a DM because you're a human being who is not a computer, and you have to do a lot. And the number of times that I watch another DM running combat for me as a player, and they're like, oh my God, like, they just have so many things in front of them that they're like, there's so many different things that I have to do. I watched my very dear friend Annalise run a combat that has like 30 NPCs in it, and she was like, oh, even running them as swarms, she was like, this is so much to think about and manage and try to make challenging,
and let
for
alone
you.
like having named NPCs that maybe have a sheet or at least a stat block that you have to keep track of what they're doing and how many hit points they have. No, I there's a way that I'm like, I feel, I don't know if the 2024 rules have actually changed this. My sense is no. But it seems like a wasted opportunity to try to course correct there.
Yeah. I think that in general, like, my biggest critiques of 2024, I actually enjoy 2024 now that I'm playing it. I had very heavy critiques of it, like, coming in. But I do genuinely enjoy a lot of it. But one of the biggest issues that I have is that there are very serious issues with D&D as a system, as in 5th edition, that go totally unexamined and uncorrected for in 2024. And I really wish that all of the time and money that they spent improving things that didn't necessarily need to be improved, but it's nice to have them be improved.
Or, just making the ranger even worse somehow.
Right. I wish that they had spent just a little bit more time fixing the problems that the game actually actively has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
oh well.
Yeah. They I think they're continuing to commit to being a combat simulator first and foremost, and not necessarily wanting to move away from that, which is their prerogative, I guess.
It is. It is not very reflective of how the game is actually played in practice.
Yeah.
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 I knew we could gab about that one.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah. I mean, it is so interesting to me that the person who created CR is like, this shit sucks.
Yeah.
We planned for this thing that is not how people play, and thus it does not work well.
Well, if anybody is qualified to tell you that something is shit, it's the person who made it.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Ugh. Okay.
You want to do some horror stories?
Well, I want to ask you a question.
Oh?
In fact, it is not a horror story. It is a question.
Okay.
Now, what I want to do, I want to ask you this person's question before I even really read some of like their post. This comes to us from r/DM Academy and from user Imagination YouTube. Interesting question. And there's like a little bit of background and there's a little bit of like explanation of their thought, but there are questions that they are asking the community. And I want to ask you these questions, and then we'll go back and see what Imagination YouTube thought. By what criteria do you judge a campaign? What makes a campaign good overall?
Ooh. I think generally I judge a campaign, whether it's something that I'm playing in, something that I'm DMing, something that I'm listening to. Generally, I do judge a campaign based on how connected do I feel to the characters and their drives, and how interested am I in seeing them try to achieve what they're trying to achieve. I am a very story-driven player and a very story-driven DM. I play in very role-play heavy campaigns. We were just talking about like how I feel about combat. I have played in campaigns that have combat like once every few months. And been very satisfied by that, because the things that I am the most interested in are how strongly I can connect to these people in feeling like they are real people interacting with a problem in a way that like feels good to me. Not even necessarily that feels real, but that feels satisfying to watch. And do they interact with each other in ways that are satisfying? Do they interact with the world in ways that are satisfying? Like, that's really what I'm looking for, is a richness of character that breathes life into this place that I will never be, right? That is when I think that D&D is at its most potent, its most powerful to me, is when I am fully embodying somebody who does not exist, when I am fully aligned with them spiritually, mentally, emotionally, in whatever problem they're trying to solve, in however they're trying to solve it.
I think that's a fantastic answer.
Yeah, that's where I live. That's my where my heart is.
Yeah. It made me think about the time I was, about a year ago, I offered to lead a game for my family if they ever wanted to. And coincidentally, my oldest nephew has started playing, and we're probably going to do a family game around Thanksgiving. But my mom said something that I just laughed at, like out loud for a minute. And she said, "How do you win D&D?" And I just laughed. I was like, this is a fundamental misunderstanding of the goals of this game. And I was like, Mom, you win when everyone's had a good time.
Yes.
You win, like, there's the level progression. You win if you get to whatever high level your DM decides is the end of your campaign and you beat whatever thing you're beating, like maybe. But like, really you win if everyone's having a good time and telling a story together. And
I think it's interesting that I think you and I both want to approach the answer to this question from a narrative perspective, and how do we feel about the characters that we have created and their interactions? Because I think there's a lot of different answers to this question. And at this point, I will say that this person is, I read you a little bit more of it. For a school project, they're creating a D&D campaign. Part of the assignment is to create a success criteria rubric to later grade yourself on how good a job you did. We're supposed to interview experts to create this rubric. So, of course, they turn to Reddit because nothing says experts like everyone on Reddit weighing in about something.
Yeah.
And also, like, immediately have I'm sorry if this is an inappropriate place, which I was like, oh, you sweet summer child. No, Reddit is where you ask the thing. So their current criteria topics: number of sessions, organization, player enjoyment, research integration, communication, and creative thinking. They add in comments, a response to comments, like they have a set number of criteria, and they also cannot be weighted criteria. Because as you might imagine, immediately someone was like, I think player enjoyment is like 80% of a successful campaign. And there's also, little explanations of those 6 categories. But I think this was an interesting way to try to quantify and have some data about, did I run a successful D&D campaign, and what criteria do I want to base that on? Number of sessions, I was like, to me, that is not necessarily important. I've had very, very successful one-shots.
To me, that is completely negligible, actually.
Yeah.
I agree with you. And I also know many people who have had campaign that they only see each other once, twice, 4 times a year, maybe. And they still love that campaign and get a lot out of it. I think I am an outlier in terms of I would play D&D every day if I could. There was a point during lockdown where we were playing one of my campaigns every day. Sometimes 6 to 8 hours a day. Who knows? Who knows? We were crazy.
What the fuck else is there to do? As long as the DM has had time to prep the next big chunk of stuff, why not?
We went crazy back then. We could do anything.
Yeah. This was the server that I mentioned where I was doing these fucking fights using D&D Beyond's bot all day, all the time.
Yeah.
Because it was a worldwide collection of people, and someone was always awake and down to talk in character.
I think probably that's not the healthiest way to play.
No.
Just because I would play that way doesn't mean that I think that that's the ideal way to play. Actually, one of the reasons we stopped doing that is because pretty much everybody other than me in the group was like, this is exhausting. I can't keep this up. So I actually think that number of sessions is immaterial. Now one thing that they do bring up that I think a lot of people bellyache about, because it's a much bigger part of player enjoyment than you'd think, is organization. That's a really good point. That is way more important than you think. More so than number of sessions, knowing when your next session is, and knowing that everybody's going to show up and
honestly,
actually do it.
Successful scheduling is maybe a pretty important part of that list. And it's part of organization for sure. Which they quantify as printing out maps, explaining mechanics, making sure everyone knows their spells and has their character sheets. And I'm like, yes, and scheduling, getting everyone to show up at the table.
I think scheduling is a much bigger part of organization than really any of that. I could forego all of that as long as scheduling is consistent. Knowing that you're going to, it's really interesting that player enjoyment is kind of just one of the, because I actually agree, is at its core, D&D is good if everybody has fun. And there's an aspect of even when I was talking about I know a D&D campaign is successful when I'm really connecting to the characters. And when I'm really connecting to the characters in a way that is making my friendships and relationships with other people at the table better and not worse. Regardless of what that character is doing, as long as the interactions that they're having with other people around the table are making my relationships with other people better and not worse, we are having a good time. Right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is, again, like I was saying, I think it's so interesting. They are forced to pick 6 categories that they cannot wait because, again, like if everyone's having fun, if everyone walks away from the table with a smile on their face, or a serious look if it was a very serious session, but like if everyone's walking away excited and like can't wait for the next time, and like you're saying, like have deepened their characters' relationship and their friendships, I think that is more important, honestly, than anything else.
I agree.
And not exclusive to D&D, also, to be fair. I think that is the case for like any longer form or medium form RPG.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think about like I've definitely I've asked similar questions of different people, and I've had people be like, "Oh, I know if like I make my players cry, like I know that it was a good session," and I do agree with that. I have felt very proud of myself when I've made my players cry from something in story that is sad, not from something that like, because I'm a big crier, as you know. I have definitely cried about things that happened in the D&D table in a good way and in a way that I really enjoyed. I've also cried from things that happened in the D&D table in a bad way. And in a way where it's like, why I am crying is because something happened that violated my relationship with somebody. And that was like deeply upsetting to me on a personal level. And so I think that like differentiating the metric between like, did you have a good time? Do you feel closer to the people at the table? Is the story compelling to you? Are you gonna come next week because you like being around these people and you're interested in what's gonna happen next?
I think there's also a difference between, what is a successful campaign versus what is a good DM.
Yeah.
And I think the categories they're listing kind of conflate these two.
Yes.
Right? You can be a mediocre to bad DM for a given definition of that, which in this case I will say is like not being prepared, not necessarily knowing all of the rules of whatever system you're running. But if you're telling a good story and people were there and were excited to show up and kept showing up, that's still a successful campaign.
Right.
According to this person's criteria on like creative thinking and organization, you might have failed. But the important thing was that you and your players were having a good time and continuing to come back and show up for each other.
I agree. And I actually don't think that this person's conflation of those two things is exclusive to them. I actually think that there's a sort of community-wide conflation of these two things where we've read stories from people who are like, I'm not the best DM because I don't know all the rules. I don't know all the rules. You think I know all the rules?
Matter. Doesn't fucking matter.
There were so many rules that I didn't know until I started playing Baldur's Gate, and I was like, "Oh, that's how that worked. That's crazy. I didn't know that was how that worked. I've been running games for 7 years. I've been running D&D games for a long time, and it's just dense. It's a dense, crunchy system. There's going to be rules you don't know. That doesn't really matter as long as your players are having a good time. It's more important that your players are having a good time and that you are having a good time than it is that you know and execute on all of the rules correctly.
I could not agree more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. But
that's so fun.
Yeah. I thought that was a really good question. It came across my feed like I think maybe 5 days ago, almost a week ago, and I was like, "Oh no, I must save this. This is such a good question to ask and talk about." I'm so excited.
That's so good.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to your mid-roll. It is I, your host, Colin, here to thank you once again for listening. It is so nice and so important, and it feels so good that you are here with us. And also to remind you that if you never want to hear me say that again, if you just are excited about the show, if you love what we're doing, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/therollreport, where also, for as little as a single $1 a month, you can submit questions for our interview guests. Only our friends and supporters on Patreon can submit questions, and only they will get to hear the answers. We've got some really incredible guests coming up as usual, and if you want to hear their answers to your questions, head on over to Patreon. Also, you can follow us on social media. We are at The Roll Report Cast on Instagram and TikTok, and now on Blue Sky. Ooh. Follow us there for announcements about upcoming guests once they have been booked, and then you will find out if you have interesting and amazing and unusual questions for all of them. But thank you so much for listening. That's really all. We are so grateful you're here with us and hope you are enjoying this episode. Back to the show.
I have a similar, like, kind of a story that is less about the story that I'm going to read you and that is more about the conversation that I want to have with you around it.
Okay.
So this is from r/RPG from user on that train. The title is DMPCs. Are they really as bad as people say? Long story short, I'm joining an ongoing campaign. Friend who is a player in it has warned me that generally things are going great, except that the DM has a DMPC with a party, and it is annoying to them. I asked them for more clarifications, but Friend kind of brushed it off. Presumably not to deter me from joining, but they just made vague hand gestures and said something along the lines of, regular DMPC things, it gets old. But the thing is, I've never felt that way about DMPCs I've encountered. My main D&D groups consists of 4 regular players and our forever DM. In our most recent adventure, DM has had one of his old PCs from another game join with us as kind of a guide to the area at first. And I think he was planning on leaving him behind once he'd played his part of introducing us to the area and the campaign-specific lore and given us a hook to get us started on our main quest. But we got really attached to him, and he ended up following us around for the whole adventure. He was a couple levels ahead of us to begin with because DM couldn't be bothered to change his stats, but we've now caught up. DMPC never takes a lead in social situations, despite being the only one with a charisma modifier of over 0. Never takes decisions unless we beg DM to please railroad us because we're at a complete loss, and takes normal turns in combat, doing a perfectly average amount of damage for his class and level. Sometimes combat is going really well for us, and he'll get distracted and skip turns because he's a silly little dude. Overall, we have nothing but good things to say about our DMPC travel companion, but from what my friend was saying and things I've seen online, that does not seem to be the average experience. How worried should I be? Is my group just too positive and happy to be helped?
So I was going to say, this sounds like the best possible version of a DMPC and one that I would not really have a problem with, right? I think something I notice is that the games that I've run when people are having like really good role play, I'm like, oh, I'm a little sad that I'm not able to participate in this unless I have my stand-in there to do something. And absolutely, my players have gotten attached to a thing. So this person's regular DM is doing a number of very smart things, right? I think it is not offensive to have the DMPC that isn't min-maxed and overpowered and like given the best equipment and like killing all the things. These are the horror stories that we read about. I think it is not necessarily a bad thing to be like, here is this NPC who's going to know some stuff about the world you're in and be able to point you to it. I do think it's hilarious in this case that the DMPC is the only one with a positive charisma mod and refuses to do any talking, but also deeply appropriate, right? I think the problems come, the horror stories come when the DMPC is the main character. And these are where I think we have encountered this when we've been like, go write a fucking book.
Right.
Go write the book about that character and how badass they are and how they were never challenged at any point in this campaign. Like, so all that by way of saying, I don't think DMPCs or like the NPC that gets attached and comes around with you for a while is necessarily a bad thing. I think it is all in how the DM in question is playing them or has built them. And if they're continuing to communicate with their players along the way of like, hey, this guy did his job. He was supposed to get you into that layer because he knows how to find the secret exit and now he's going to leave. And if your player's like, whoa, we like that guy. We like that guy. He can stay. And you're like, okay. Tell me when you want that to stop. But here he is. You know, so yeah, I'm not against them, but I recognize the potential for bad DM behavior
Yeah.
when they exist.
I think it was fairly recently that I realized that there is a pretty strong anti-DMPC sort of vibe, especially on Reddit. That was news to me. I don't think I've played in a campaign really until yours that didn't have at least some variety of DMPC in it. Now, part of this is that I usually play with a pretty small group where it's 3 players and 1 DM. And I think also like part of it is that like I play in very role play heavy campaigns where like NPCs will become DMPCs because we take such an interest in them as a party. But I think one of the things that you're really getting at here that I completely agree with is that player buy-in is huge here. Player opt-in is like actually like kind of the core of what makes a DMPC work. And when I think about DMPCs that have completely worked in the campaigns that I'm in, and DMPCs that have not worked and have seriously annoyed me, a lot of it comes down to how powerful and knowledgeable are they relative to the rest of the party? Are they like, is it reasonable, like kind of what they're bringing to the table? And did the party ask for them to be there or not? Was it an option to bring them in, or was it just kind of told to you that it's like, you're going to be bringing this person with you and they're much more powerful than you are and they know a lot of stuff that you don't, and they
why the fuck am I bringing this person anywhere? They can get there by themselves.
Right, they'll be fine. Like they can just they can go do the adventure without me, right? You don't need me. This person has superpowers that I don't have. Why would I escort mission Clark Kent anywhere? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that. It's not my job to carry around the Martian Manhunter on my back. He's fine. He's got it. Like he doesn't need me there.
They will be totally fine. What am I fucking doing here? I think is the I
faced this major challenge when I was the campaign that I run currently is a campaign where I knew I was going to have a DMPC from jump. And I knew that I not only was going to have a DMPC, but that I was going to have several like very like kind of high level NPCs who are going to be involved in most of what the party was doing. And when I was creating those characters, a big concern that I had was like, oh man, I really don't want to make this person somebody the party doesn't like, which is something that you don't really worry about when you're making your own player character. You're like, it's okay if this person's unlikable.
We'll figure it out as we go along.
Yeah. If this is the bus driver and the whole campaign is everybody being on the bus, the people on the bus better fucking like them. They got to be pretty fun. And it's interesting. I do think that I do wonder how much of like DMs creating DMPCs is like them being bored and wanting to participate in ways that they can't as a DM.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a small but significant part for a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, I'm making this cool story and I want to actually be able to affect it a little bit, not just react to my party. Yeah. You know, there's something you said also that I think is interesting about having a DMPC in most games or most of your games with smaller numbers of people.
Yeah.
Because I think that's also not uncommon, right? I think about like, you know, in the case of the Roll Report's own campaign, like I absolutely brought Alistair in with the intention of being like, this is your guide to the city, and then he will be done. And then I was like, actually, it's like, it's really fun, and I like these people, and I kind of want to stick around. And I tried very hard to limit it, and it was hard. And then I think about also, you know, a classic example of this, season 1 of NADPOD, Balnor. Starts off, they pull a night card from the deck of many things, and here's this little halfling who hangs out with them for the entirety of the rest of the campaign and provides great moments of levity and really gives Murph a chance to play his own campaign. But still, in that case, Balnor never like drives the action and makes decisions about where the party is going. He's like there, and he's just there in combat.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm always amazed how that show does about balancing things in their combats. To refer to our earlier topic. But
Murph is
Yeah.
an expert. Like it's definitely
Yeah.
like it's kind of unavoidable that Murph is one of the best in the game, literally at doing stuff like this. I do think like when this campaign where it's like I basically played the president and they're my Secret Service. I don't know why they agreed to do a campaign like that, except that it's more fun to be Secret Service than it is to be the president in this particular campaign. And I think if you're going to do that, where you know that like your DMPC is going to do an amount of driving, I do think that there's a lot of work that you have to do to both get your players on board and be like, they're okay with that. And also to make it so that you actually drive as little as possible. The way that I constructed this guy was basically that he was like, actually, I really want this to be like sort of a lead by committee, not like, I don't want to be a king. I don't want to like be the person making all the decisions. I would really rather you guys speak for me and like weigh in on every decision. I'm not very comfortable like being the person who drives all of that. And I think that's part of it, is that like, if there's something cool that's gonna happen, your players should get to do it, not you, right?
Yeah,
that's really at the core of this.
That's why they're playing. One reason why they're playing, probably.
Right. They're not here to watch you have a good time. They're here to have a good time.
Yeah, if I want to watch your playthrough of Baldur's Gate 3, I'll be like, hey, go stream it for me on Twitch or something so I can watch your version.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't necessarily want to sit around the table while you do that.
Yeah.
And my character exists.
And I do think that that's definitely one of the reasons why DMPCs have this very negative reputation of like, oh, the DM just wants us to sit around and watch them monologue and do cool stuff for the next 4 hours. And I understand why people are not super like into that. But like one of the DMPCs in Annalise's campaign, first of all, she's 17. We're on a permanent escort mission with her. And also she's never left her house. So she's like extraordinarily powerful, but like she's 17 and she doesn't know anything that's going on. And she doesn't even really know what her powers do. She's basically the MacGuffin.
That's fun.
And that's fun.
Yeah, that's fun. And like, I know you guys talk about these things out of session, out of game as well. And like, you're like, how are we doing? Is everyone okay? We okay that we're probably endangering a teenager existing in this campaign? Yeah. And that's a very different situation. That's like a very different kind of thing. Again, like in this story, this is one of the best examples of a DMPC that I think you could hope for. And I understand why this person's friend was like, I don't know, this RDM, they're doing that shit. And you're like, okay.
Yeah, I've played in campaigns with DMPCs that are annoying. And honestly, my sense is that usually when the DMPC is annoying, it's actually a problem that kind of leaches out into the entire campaign and also into like the NPCs. Which is like this campaign that I'm thinking of. Everybody just knows everything. Like all of the NPCs that we meet, like know more about every situation than we do.
Okay.
And like they're just kind of omniscient. And every enemy that we ever face like is like 10 steps ahead of us, no matter how intricate the plan that we've made is. And like it that leaches into, and everybody's so much more powerful than we are. Like we're at level 9 and we're still, most of the people that we encounter are like way more powerful than we are. And it's like, okay. Okay. Then we are characters in your book. Yeah. And we are just here. We are players who have signed up to read lines for you. And fine. That's the campaign then. Okay.
I guess. Is that fine? Is that fine? How long did you continue with that campaign?
I am still in that campaign.
You are still in that campaign.
I am,
oh my God. Oh dear.
Yeah. I'm still in that campaign. Sometimes we make choices because sometimes it's more complicated to get out of something than it is to just kind of duck your head and be like, okay, well, that's how it is.
Yeah,
then.
That's true. That's true. Well, I'm sorry that you're still in one of those campaigns,
Thank
and
you.
I hope that DM eventually pulls their head out of their ass.
I hope so. I definitely think that it is. It depends on the person, but I find that this is like a very like inexperienced DM problem to have. Because this same DM has been in situations where I'm like, I'm watching them struggle and I'm like, yeah, you did write yourself into a corner here, because there's no, like, one of the big problems in this campaign, not to get on to, we're not talking about a campaign that I'm in, not, is that one of the biggest problems in this campaign is that we will often go to NPCs and be like, hey, solve the problem for us. And these NPCs have the power and the knowledge to solve the problems for us. And that is obviously not what you're going for as a DM. This is kind of the danger in creating like super powerful, knowledgeable DMPCs is that then your players will go like, well, you solve the problem then.
I did encounter this totally accidentally, and I think it was partly a character decision by one of my players to be like, well, why do you need to hire me? You just teleported us here from nowhere. You can clearly handle this yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm forced to just kind of be like, you know, in the half moose horns, like, this is me out of character. Just do the fucking job. Please. I don't. Why are you fighting me? You know,
because
but yeah.
You have introduced exactly you did this. It's not your players who've introduced this problem. You said,
yeah,
this guy can do that, and your players logically were like, well, then what does he need me for?
I mean, in that case, I'm just like, look, the ruler of the city of Waterdeep does not get their fucking hands dirty, okay?
There you go.
Like, you need to go do the thing that she asked you to do.
Right. It definitely, though, like, I do think that, like, super powerful, super knowledgeable DMPCs, sometimes you're just watching a DM write themselves, like, more and more and more into a corner where it's like, yeah, like, it makes sense that you're a little frustrated where you're like, well, why are you making all the NPCs solve everything? Why are you making the DMPC do it?
And you're like, why should we do it? You have literally made people in the game that you've said are experts in this thing and can do the thing. Why would we do it?
Yeah. No, it's definitely, I think that it's a very common problem to have, like, as an inexperienced DM, to make choices to solve one problem, which is, for example, your party being small, your party being underleveled, your party, like, being in a bad situation that they don't know how to get themselves out of, parties needing guidance, parties needing, like, some amount of, like, mentorship or, like, somebody to, like, tour guide them around. And to end up in a situation where you're like, uh-oh, I gave you that guy to solve that problem, and now I have a different problem.
Now I've just made more problems for myself, in fact.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think that it does speak to a DM inexperience to write yourself into corners, and then to some, what I guess I want to say, like, poor storytelling if you can't then get yourself out.
Right.
That may be a little unfair to people that are more inexperienced and just like, I don't know. Like, I think about how many, I think a lot in the games that I've been running, how the years of reading, years of stories that I've consumed only serve to feed me, because then I can think of a way out of a thing because I've probably read this thing happening. This thing backfired in this character in this book that I can vaguely recall, and then I know several options of how to redirect it.
Yeah.
I way over-leveled a group of road bandits for my partner's campaign, and then they all got knocked out. And I was like, hey, this is going to happen, but how would we feel about this happening? And then we're going to play Roll for Shoes, and those donkeys you picked up in the last town are going to save you guys. And they were all like, fuck yes. And then I was like, great. Okay, so you're all knocked out and your donkeys are freaking out. And then next session, I will have rules for Rolls for Shoes. And we spent like 5 sessions as their donkeys, including the tiger who was raised as a donkey and insisted they was a donkey. And in fact, when they listen to this, they will probably all send me an angry text that I'm continuing to say that it was a tiger and not a donkey. They all went after the player characters as the donkeys, and we had a great time for like 3 months on this totally random thing because I'd overbalanced the encounter and was like, well, you're all going to go down, so what do I want to do about this?
Yeah. I think one of the things that you're bringing up is something that I was actually talking to a friend of mine about recently, which is that as people get more and more like introduced to D&D through D&D that is done for performance, so like Dimension 20, NADPOD, any actual play you can think of, Critical Role, those people are entertainers who are performing. And even though I think that actual play podcasts are a fantastic way to get into D&D because D&D is so crunchy and you need, like, oftentimes in order to feel comfortable playing it, you need to see somebody else do it first. I think that those are fantastic recruitment tools for people who've never actually played D&D themselves. But I also think that in getting introduced to D&D that is done as a performance, a lot of people don't realize that there are different rules when you are playing D&D at home. And that one of the biggest rules at home is if you didn't like that, we can just say it didn't happen.
Yeah.
If I have written myself into a corner because of something that I said previously, I can just raise my little hand and say, hey guys, I know that I said this thing at that time. That doesn't work anymore. I need you guys to just agree that I didn't say that, right?
As we all know, there are in fact 2 moons in the sky above the party at this moment. 2 moons, as we all know, and everyone thinks is totally normal.
Everyone knows that. We all agree that that's the case.
As we all know, your best friend, Nick Pick, the small gnomish match girl who lives outside the barracks, your best friend is here to take you to the concert.
One of my favorite things that you do as a DM, I have absolutely implemented that in my own campaigns. It's so useful. And I do think that in situations where like you've done things like introduce a DM PC to solve problems, and now you're in a situation where your players are like, hey, if they can do that, why don't they just do this? I can put the fiction down for a second and say, hey guys, I worked really hard on this dungeon. I really want you to do it. Can you just do it? Let's just pretend both her arms are broken and she can't help you.
Yeah, they just can't. She's got an urgent call of nature. In fact, she ate a bad mushroom and is just over in the corner shitting herself right now and telling you to go on without you.
She has a bad stomach bug and she already drank her morning coffee. She's going to be in the bathroom for another 2 hours. She absolutely cannot do this.
Yeah, she'll catch up later.
She'll catch up with you later, please. Like, you are always allowed as a DM to just above table say, hey, can you guys just do this thing? And I think that is an underutilized tool when you don't know you can do that.
I think DMs, as a overgeneralization, are sometimes afraid to admit they have made a mistake and walk something back.
Yeah.
I think you and I move and play in rarefied circles where that's like more common and people are like, oh, yeah, no, I really should have done X instead of Y. So let's just pretend I did that. Great. Sorry about that. And we move on.
Right.
And I think there's a big... I don't know. I do think there's some maybe self-importance assigned to the role of DM or GM or game runner, whatever system you're playing that title. And I think there is a hesitancy to admit that you've written yourself into that corner.
Yeah.
And to course correct when it is like your fault.
Yeah.
And then I think also this is when we get some of the horror stories where you're like, my players did this thing because I put a shiny box in front of them and they opened it. Why did they open the shiny box that I put in front of them?
What did you think was going to happen? Yeah. It's really like, I think too, like part of this is like, do you view your players as competition? Or do you view them as collaborators who are working to create a story with you? Do you think of them as people who are also telling the story Or do you think of them as people who you are trying to outdo somehow?
No, there's side characters in your Baldur's Gate playthrough.
Right. And I think like when we're looking at these two different examples of DMPCs, I'm like, here's the crucial difference. Is like, this is a DM who's being described in this post who is clearly somebody who thinks of it as like your shared campaign, not just something that they're running, but something that you get to enjoy. They missed this old player character they really love, and they wanted to bring them in, but they were never going to outshine you. And in fact, they've allowed you guys to like catch up and then overlevel them without leveling up their PC. And they have also made sure that like if he's shining a little too brightly, they immediately dim him. They're like, he's not what you're here for. We're here for you. And so of course you don't mind him. Of course you're like, he's great. We love having him
That's
around.
a thoughtful, considerate DM who's doing nice things for you.
Yeah. Versus like a sort of stereotypical DMPC who is there to outshine you, right? Who is there to like kind of put you in your place as players. I remember I was reading a post about an isekai campaign where they like get like brought into the modern world and none of their magic works, but the DM has a DMPC who shows up and he's a paladin and all of his powers work and he just talks shit to them the entire time.
Cool.
That one was a wild read.
I want to play that game. That sounds so fun.
Right. I think too, it's like, that's really what gets me about like the competitive mindset is that like, do you want these people to play with you or not?
Apparently the answer is no, at least some of the time.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. Good question to ask though. Like I think it's interesting if I was going to join a game and someone was like, well, hey, be careful for our DM. He does this kind of behavior. I would want more specifics about what kind of DMPC this, to return to this post. Like, I would want to know exactly what kind of DMPC behavior is being brought to that campaign. But it might be fine.
Yeah.
If you want, like, I think there's the other part of that. It's just it might not be an issue.
Right. I think that a lot of it is in how you run it. I think like it's so interesting because like I read posts like this about like DMPCs and railroading, things that like the internet community around D&D has decided that they are pretty uniformly against. And I'm like, I do that. I run DMPCs. I railroad. I'm a very railroady DM. I will confess to that. And like, and I stand by that because I'm like, people like structure. They don't like being told what to do, but they hate not knowing what to do. So I like very much stand by like sometimes these are the right answers to the problems your players are facing. But you have to bring in these tools with the right attitude. And I think one of the things that people push really hard against at its fundamental core basis is I don't think DMs should treat their players badly for fun.
Yeah.
Bold take, I suppose.
I mean, the very hottest of takes. Because, everyone knows that it's DM versus the players.
Right.
This is an antagonistic relationship at its core by design.
Of course.
We all know.
We all know this.
By buying the books, we agree to abide by these laws, similar to Gary Gygax of DM versus PCs. That's how we've all played. It's how it's been forever.
When you join my table, you and I are at war from then on. And it is my goal to make you have a bad time. Like, I don't think, why do people do this? Why? I don't understand it.
Not enough hugs as a child.
Probably
something.
Yeah.
And it is a continual source of amusement to me how often things we talk about come down to, did you communicate?
Yes.
Are you communicating in a healthy I statement kind of way that lets people express their feelings and be heard? And here again, like if you want to run a DMPC, if you want to railroad your players a little bit, if you need them to go to that dungeon that you spent time on, but you're doing it in a way that communicates with them and gives them the agency you want them to have, I don't see anything wrong with these things.
As long as players can opt in, all of these things are okay. Right?
And as long as they're having a good time,
Yes.
you know, and sometimes it's necessary to have the conversation of like, hey, here's what I'm planning for this next little arc and what I want to do. Does anyone have a problem with me railroading us to get to that point a little bit, you know? I think there's also a cult of secrecy around your plans for your players that is kind of unnecessary. In like, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with giving your players the broader strokes of something you're trying to set up.
I
And be
agree.
like, these are your 9 bowling pins. Everyone okay with that? Great. You can knock them down in any order.
We've even encountered this with our interview guests. Like something that I love our interview guests, but something that does drive me crazy is sometimes when we're talking to DMs and we're asking them about their campaign, and really what we're looking for is like kind of an elevator pitch. Like just give me the like kind of play-by-play of like what's going on. They're like, "Ooh, it's secret. It's secret. I can't tell you." And I do it like I understand that impulse from a DM perspective of like I don't want to like spoil my players. I want my players to be.
And it's nice of them to assume their players are going to listen.
Yeah,
or they're
I want my players to be
I love that. Please
excited
listen.
and surprised and like engaged. But I think that surprise is less engaging than people think. I think that not knowing what to expect is not always as engaging as knowing what to expect and excitedly preparing for it.
As our mutual friend often says, nobody likes surprises. Nobody likes surprises.
It's so funny.
We like pleasantly managed expectations.
They say that, and it always reminds me of I work for a company. Just by the by, hiss. I work for a company, and we do like a lot of trainings around working with the kids. And one of the trainings that we have, like about like appropriate physical contact with the children. We are a company that does not tickle. We are very anti-tickling with young children.
That's good. Tickling's horrible.
You are so funny because it says every time we take this test, me and Chucky end up saying it to each other for months. Where we're like in the handbook, it's like nobody likes to be tickled. I'm like, I think some people do. I don't think it's like
nobody likes unexpected tickling.
I agree that it's like,
or
you know,
a very, very minuscule number of people like unexpected tickling.
I think this actually gets exactly at my point, which is if you choose to be tickled, if you are opting in, if you're like, yes, I enjoy this, it's great. If you are like, I don't want to be tickled, leave me alone, nobody should tickle you. People should leave you alone. And I think that like, we as human beings want to be able to opt in. We want to be able to choose. And I think that enjoyment largely hinges on that in a game like this. It largely hinges on, did you get a chance to choose anything else? Did you get the opportunity to opt into this? Or was it something that that was just kind of forced on you?
Yeah.
I think a lot of player enjoyment comes down to, is this the game that you wanted to play or not?
Yeah. And did your DM prepare you for the game that you're about to play? Or did they say it was one thing and then turns out to be something totally different?
Yeah.
As often happens in other horror stories that we've read.
Oh, boy.
Oh, man.
Well. I love talking to you.
Same. I can't wait for the next bit of tea, anywhere from ice cold to piping hot.
Yeah.
We get to spill.
Maybe our stories next time will be a little bit more horrifying. I think this time it was just like, what do you think about this thing?
yeah. We can. I mean, again, we find the horrors, and it's almost always people weren't communicating.
Yep.
But we'll look for some of those for next time. Hannah, where can people find you and your cool stuff that you do on the internet?
Thank you. People can find me at Booger Queen Draws on Tumblr and TikTok primarily. They can also find our social media at the Roll Report Cast on TikTok, YouTube, and Blue Sky. Colin, where can people find you?
They can't. That's mostly true. Honestly, I think about this a lot, that most or many people of our generations are significantly more online or share more about their life online than I do. However, if you would like to see my 3 beautiful cats, you can find my cats on Instagram at nogoodcats. And you can keep listening to me on these podcasts. I will also say I'm going to be doing a fun little stream on the Looking for Mom streams on Tuesdays, alternate Tuesdays coming up, starting... Well, it starts yesterday, and then on the 18th and December 2nd, we're playing Outgun Superheroes. You can catch me as Prospero the Enchanter.
Ooh.
We decided it's a hereditary title from the original Prospero, who was actually a wizard. Shakespeare just kind of fucked up the story.
I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah. I'm gonna have a great time, and if you like what you're doing, maybe tell a friend or leave us the review, or go on over to patreon.com/therollreport and give us money, because unfortunately we all need money.
We have a great time
until we dismantle
doing
capitalism.
Absolutely, which is coming. It's going to happen any day now. We have a very fun time recording this show, and we also have a great slate of interview candidates coming up real soon. We've had a lot of really fun interviews in the last month that are going up, going into December, and we're really excited for you guys to get to hear from them.
Yeah. All right. Well, until next time, communicate better and, roll some more dice.
Yeah, keep on rolling.